All right, round two. All right, folks, how's everybody doing tonight? All right, so originally I was on a rant earlier talking about everything that needed to be discussed as far as the topic is concerned, but then we lost power because in the middle of a lightning storm, so we just lost power, and everything that I had written down that I was going to spit off, well, it got deleted, so I'm just going to talk from the hip right, okay? So tonight's topic I was talking about is how celebrities utilize their platform to speak about issues that they truly believe in, okay? Because there are times out there where people wonder whether celebrities should have any place in speaking on issues that they believe in, or if they feel that they have to get on top of a platform to express their political point of view or social point of view. We tend to hold celebrities not necessarily in high regard nowadays because there are times when we are indifferent to what they believe and indifferent to what they talk about and indifferent to how they conduct themselves in the public eye. Now, it's easy for celebrities to speak on these issues because, for one, they got a lot of money, and two, because they feel they've got a lot of clout that they can actually make a difference somehow. Well, half the time we're not 100% sure if they actually can make a difference. However, there are some actors and actresses out there that are fighting for causes that I truly believe are non-political. These are strictly human rights issues that they are fighting for. Now, people may say, well, they're not doing enough about it. Well, honestly, I can definitely say that they're doing enough to expose the issues and talk about the issues and making sure that people understand that there are people out there that need help. And they're actually utilizing their platform for all the right reasons. And honestly, I can't say I blame them, honestly. Because we have to remember something, is that some of the most important things that they can talk about are things that we talk about all the time. We just tend to ignore them at times because, hey, you're a celebrity. What do you matter? Why do you care about us? Sometimes we do actually have to take the time to listen. So, the first person I'm going to talk about once again is Dolph Lundgren. Long story short, Dolph Lundgren talked about how he grew up in an abusive household and how that affected his life until finally he took up therapy and took up meditation. And then finally he figured out what he can do to actually help other people. So this is from a TED Talk that he gave, and this basically is where he's talking about what he does with his time to help other people.
Started embarking on his new life. It was like a fight worth fighting, to come to terms with yourself, to heal yourself. But what I didn't realize was there is another level to that. Because once you start healing yourself and feel better, you see other people around you who need help, who have pain. And fate kind of came to me, and I wrote and produced a movie about human trafficking called Skin Trade. I learned about human trafficking, which is a terrible crime. There's 20 million slaves in the world today. It's a $20 billion industry, second largest in the world. These people are physically humiliated, psychologically abused, they have no self-worth, sort of like how I used to feel. And kind of fate brought me in contact with human trafficking and these victims. When I came back to LA, I called an organization called CAST and asked them if I could help. Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking. Well, I've been helping them ever since, and it's a great feeling for me to finally give something back. You know, and a lot of this human trafficking isn't just happening in like India and Africa and all over there. As a matter of fact, one of the most interesting cases was a girl who was brought over from a third world country by a very wealthy family. She was kept in the house. They took her passport, kept on the guard all the time, threatened her with violence, threatened her family. You know where the house was? In Brentwood, right here, about a mile from here. And she didn't know what to do. They brought this American nanny in to take care of the little kid, and they talked, and this American nanny said she was going to help her, but nothing happened. A week passed, month passed. Finally, they were coming back from the park one day. She was taking care of this kid, and there was the security guy as usual. And there was 15 FBI agents outside the house. They took her inside and said, "Do you want to stay? Do you want to leave?" She said, "I want to leave." Cass got her into a shelter, re-educated her, brought her back, learned a job. She finally ended up getting a green card. As a matter of fact, she met this man from her home country that she fell in love with, and they got married. And to be part of something like that, it's just amazing. As a matter of fact, Alice, she is also pregnant with her new baby. I told her towards the end of my talk, I want you to say hi to her. Alice, please stand up. So anyway, I guess for me, the experience that I've told you about is like you have to come to terms with yourself. You have to love yourself so you can appreciate those things in others. If you heal yourself, you can heal others. And I think if you take time to look inside and find that little boy, that little girl inside yourself, then you treat them well, and then you're ready to look, see a little boy, a little girl next to you that may need some help. Because if you do that, it's just the greatest feeling in the world.
Now, that's a very, inspiring story about how Dolph Lundgren, who's utilizing his platform. And now, granted, the movie Skin Trade didn't do very well. It was a straight-to-DVD kind of movie. I haven't had a chance to really watch it because it's damn near impossible to find. But the thing is, though, is that this is an issue that does happen across the world. It happens all across, it doesn't just happen in the United States. It happens everywhere. And he even mentioned, where he was, where that young lady, Alice, he was talking about, was just a mile from where he was doing his TED Talk. And how many people had no idea what was going on at that point? And the thing is it's a very tragic thing to think about, because when you think human trafficking, when you think slavery, you're thinking like the cruelest and meanest people from a third world. But like I keep on saying, sometimes the most evil people that you see wear business suits at times. And that's the unfortunate thing right there. But the thing is, I'm just really thankful that you've got people like Dolph Lundgren that is doing his part, working with CAST. And like I said, CAST stands for the Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking. It's a very, very noble cause to be a part of, I'm sure. I've looked up into their website. I would love to actually be a part of that. I would love to just know what I can do, because I'm a firm believer in fighting against human trafficking, because there is nothing more sinister or horrendously bad than human trafficking. Now, another actor out there, right, he's been fighting child sex trafficking specifically. Now, a lot of people look at this guy as like, I can't take him seriously because of his political point of view. And people actually made fun of him and says like, oh, why don't you go back to doing your day job? His day job isn't necessarily acting. I'm talking about Ashton Kutcher. Ashton Kutcher actually helped and is the vice chairman for Thorn, okay? Now, if nobody has had a chance, okay, to look up what Thorn is, okay, I can explain it to you. Thorn actually is what it's known as. It's basically protecting children from digital human trafficking right there, okay? Ashton Kutcher is one of the main founders of Thorn. And people thought that they would actually make fun of him and get under his skin. But the thing is, though, he actually went before Congress to talk about this because he feels it is that important to express himself on this issue. Now, mind you, this is very graphic, what he's going to talk about. But I can promise you, it only gets worse the more I talk with you about this. So why am I talking about celebrities? Because they feel the same thing we feel about this. So here's Ashton Kutcher testifying before Congress.
My day job is as the chairman and the co-founder of Thorn. We build software to fight human trafficking and the sexual exploitation of children. And that's our core mission. My other day job is that of the father of two, a 2-month-old and a 2-year-old. And as part of that job that I take very seriously, I believe that it is my effort to defend their right to pursue happiness and to ensure a society and government that defends it as well. But the right to pursue happiness for so many is stripped away. It's raped. It's abused. It's taken by force, fraud, or coercion. It is sold for the momentary happiness of another. I've seen video content of a child that's the same age as mine being raped by an American man that was a sex tourist in Cambodia. And this child was so conditioned by her environment that she thought she was engaging in play. I've been on the other end of a phone call from my team asking for my help because we had received a call from the Department of Homeland Security telling us that a 7-year-old girl was being sexually abused, and that content was being spread around the dark web. And she had been being abused, and they'd watched her for 3 years, and they could not find the perpetrator, asking us for help. We were the last line of defense. An actor and his foundation were the potential last line of defense. That's my day job, and I'm sticking to it. Can we build the tools that are better than their tools to fight what's happening? There are sites in the United States that do this other than Backpage, a lot of them, in fact. There are sites internationally that are doing this. There are other sites. It's happening all over the place. It's been happening for decades in print media. We're now just recognizing it for what it is, and I think that that's the most important part. And secondarily to that is let's build the tools, let's finance the tools, and let's deploy the tools to fight back.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you all have got to feel exactly the way I feel when you hear stories like that. I mean, it's absolutely abhorrent that there are people out there that are willing to inflict their own desires upon children. It's absolutely disgusting. And the thing is, there are people out there that are talking about these, sex cults that are child sex cults in Hollywood. And honestly, if stuff like that is brought to light, then every last person that has something to do with that needs to be brought to justice as soon as possible. They shouldn't even be given the opportunity to take their own life. They need to be dealt with. Absolutely dealt with. Like, there should be no mistake about that whatsoever. And I'm so thankful that Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore, unfortunately Demi Moore is possibly, associated with Jeffrey Epstein, but that's just speculation right now, but there's a possibility that she was friends with him. But when they started learning the issue of child sex trafficking from that documentary that Ashton Kutcher was talking about. And it's just so amazing about how people try to mock a guy who's trying to do the right thing. And I honestly commend Ashton Kutcher, even if I don't necessarily agree with him politically. This is a platform that everybody has got to be willing to get behind. This is a platform that everybody has got to get out there and support. If you have no idea where to go for it, Google Thorn and type in Ashton Kutcher in your Google search. Look up on the website. You'll have the opportunity to donate to his website. You'll learn how to get involved. I feel it's so important that every last one person that listens to this show do their part to spread awareness, because I talk about this stuff all the time because it's blatantly obvious that people are still not listening. People are still not listening. People are still unwilling to accept the fact that there are sick and twisted people in this world, and there are people out there that are actually trying to lead the fight, trying to lead the charge out there. I really hope that people take it seriously, and hopefully people contribute and donate or do whatever the hell they have to donate to Thorn. Once again, just look it up, www.thorn.org. We will be back after these messages. Hey, you. Yeah, you. You looking to get your business promoted? Do you need a podcast to advertise your product? Head on over to www.365livebroadcasting.com and send us an email. We're always looking for sponsors. Back to the show. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, please feel free to hit like, share, and get this podcast out here, because I want as many people as possible to listen to this, okay? Because I shared this a couple days ago. I had little to no feedback. Now, I'm not saying it's anybody's fault in particular. I shared it to multiple Facebook pages, and I got nothing. Hardly anybody took the time to watch this video. I don't know if it's because you just don't want to or you just feel uncomfortable about it, but you're going to listen to it now. This is Blake Lively from 3 years ago. Blake Lively, who's married to Ryan Reynolds, after she received an award at the Variety Award show, where I don't even know what the context of it was, right? But she got up there in this 8 minutes and 24-second video, okay? I'm going to be stopping in between to give my 2 cents on what she's talking about. But I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to let Blake Lively explain what she's been doing to combat child sex trafficking and pedophilia.
And thank you to Variety for not only honoring and acknowledging women, but acknowledging the issues that we all need to be talking about. I'm just so grateful to be in the company of all of the women being honored here today. So I'm here today because I'm a mama, and I have 2 baby girls. Well, they're not babies, but I think they are. James and Inez, and they are my world. And I would do anything to protect them. I would literally die for them without a moment's thought. And for those of you who have children, I think you know what I'm talking about. I mean, if you think of what you would do for your child, I don't think there's anything you wouldn't ask of yourself. So it got me thinking, what is the value of a single child's life? And what is the value of a child's life who isn't our own? Like, what is her little life worth, or his little life worth, And the sexual exploitation of children is something that isn't happening rarely. It's not happening worlds away. It's happening right here and right now. So to show you guys that, while I'm talking, there's a map right here. And if you guys look up at this map, every time a dot shows up, is it live? What's happening? Oh, there you go.
So what she's talking about, there's a map being lit up, and she's going to explain the significance to this map. Now, they didn't actually show this map on the screen. I wish they really would have. But she's going to explain the significance of this map right here, okay? So I want everybody to pay very close attention.
There you go. Now they have it live. So every time a dot shows up, that is someone that's trading or viewing child pornography right now as we speak. So that's how prevalent this is. And I didn't really know what child pornography was. We all sort of have an idea of it, and I was afraid to ask as a mother, because it would be very painful to hear. And I felt like I had to ask, though, and I feel like I have to share it with you guys now. And it is disturbing, and I want to warn you, but I feel it's my responsibility to tell you guys, because it is the truth, and I believe if we all knew this, we would dedicate much more of ourselves to stopping it.
I'm not going to lie, people. This is going to disturb you down to your core, but you have to hear this. This is why I had to share it, because people have got to hear. It's that disturbing, I promise you. I'm really sorry ahead of time, but we have to spread this message.
So when I asked what child pornography entailed, yes, it's nude images of boys and girls under the age of 18. But now, because of high-speed internet, it's also videos very prominently. And videos of kids, and by kids I mean prepubescent, visibly prepubescent. And they make the distinction because of the internet and there's so much content, these pedophiles are desensitized. Because of that, the kids are getting younger, and the content is getting that much more devastating. So when this law enforcement officer told me this, I asked him how young are the young kids he's seeing, and he told me infants. And I have a 6-month-old baby. So I said, what does that mean? What does an infant mean? And he said, with the umbilical cord still attached. I know it's so devastating to hear this, and I'm really sorry to share this, but I'm grateful that you guys are listening, because this is actually happening, and it's important that we know this, and that it resonates with us, so that we think about this in our days and in our personal life. So I asked them what happens in these videos, and unspeakable things happen, but I'm again going to speak about them, because I feel like if these kids are experiencing this, the least that they deserve is for us to hear what is actually happening to them. So no, it's not just touching. There is penetration. There is extreme torture and bondage. There is bestiality, which is having an animal penetrate the child or infant. There is incest. I mean, They said you think of it, anything you could think of, it's out there and it's being traded, and it's 30 to 50 million files a day being traded that we know of.
30 to 50 million files a day that are being traded. 30 to 50 million. That is just stunning. That is, I mean, yeah, one is too many, but 30 to 50 million a day. It makes me sick to think about.
I mean, you can see what's happening right now. And this is happening to any child and every child. 90% of children know their abusers. So, our children are at risk. You may know this person. It may be a doctor. It may be a coach. I thought that people that were working with children were people that wanted to protect them. But oftentimes these people who have this propensity for wanting to lure children, and they find out a profession that gives them access to children and lots of them. And ideal victims are young children because they can't speak up and they don't make great witnesses. If they do, only 10% of children actually do speak up once they've been abused. So what's incredible about the Child Rescue Coalition is that they are proactive. They don't wait for these children to speak up. They can identify these pedophiles. They can see the IP address that's trading this child pornography. They don't know, there's no privacy issues, there's no big brothering. They see the IP address of who's trading these files, and they give that to law enforcement. And the trading of these files is a felony, so law enforcement can knock on that person's door and see if that person has access to a child. Because the average abuser abuses between 50 and 100 children in their lifetime, per person, per abuser. And the average person that views child pornography, between 55 and 90% of people viewing it are actually hands-on abusers or will become abusers. And you think that sounds like a lot, 50 to 100, maybe that's unrealistic, but the kids age out of the age that they stay silent, or they age out of the sexual preference of the predator. And I was told the story of an oncologist, a pediatric oncologist, who was raping his children with cancer by the hundreds. And there was a nurse who was working with children with mental and physical disabilities. And when he was caught, they asked him how many children he abused. And he looked outside the window at the snow and said, "How many snowflakes are there outside?" So this is so prevalent, and I want you guys to know this, and I want it to resonate with you, and I want you to see that the Child Rescue Coalition in just 3 years has found 9,000 predators so far. They have saved 2,000 children. And yes, they need donations. That's great, because then they can continue to make this tool free for law enforcement. But they also really need introductions, which is why I've been talking for way too long, and I'm very aware of that, and I'm sorry. But you guys are all very important and well-connected people. So this is my time to tell you, they need introductions. They need introductions to big companies. So for example, let's say, because they have the IP address of all of these predators, they could give the IP address over to care.com or Uber. And if that person is filing for an application to work at this company, to become a nanny or a driver, they're immediately rejected because they've traded child pornography. Or if Comcast wants to receive their list of IP addresses, or any big internet service provider, they can block that content from being shared because they know what those files are. There are no privacy issues. They just block that illegal content. So why the hell are we not doing this? It makes no sense. We have to make these introductions. We have to help these kids. It doesn't infringe on anything legally. So I just encourage you, table 17, we have flyers with the list of companies that need introductions. So thank you to Carly Yost, who's here, the founder and CEO of the Child Rescue Coalition. She is the real hero, along with everybody at the coalition, Bill Wiltsey. Thank you to everybody protecting our children. They are the real heroes. And thank you to all of you who spent your afternoon sitting here, listening to all of us talk about these things that are really painful. And I just think, I just feel really grateful to have the opportunity to speak for the people that aren't able to speak for themselves. And I know that all of us feel that way today. So thank you for valuing everyone's life, for these children's lives. Thank you.
It's absolutely abhorrent to hear that there are so many people out there that are victimizing and treating children this way. And I'm so thankful that we've got people like Blake Lively who's talking about it. I mean, half of these people probably went home and probably didn't even give two shits about it, honestly. They probably went back and said, oh, that was such a terrible thing, but probably didn't do anything afterwards, which is a huge problem. I mean, anytime there's a situation of human trafficking, I try to talk about it as much as possible. I don't care how uncomfortable it makes people. I fully support any celebrity that's willing to get up there and say, this is a problem. I mean, we should all know it's a problem. But I'm willing to support anybody that's willing to stand up on that stage and saying enough is enough. I mean, she's absolutely right. Why aren't we not doing more to support organizations like this that are out there trying to protect these children, to ensure that they do not fall victim to these evil, twisted monsters? And yes, I use the term monsters because I say it all the time. Monsters do live among us. And guess what? They could be anybody. Barb said it earlier. Could it be a politician? I say again, when I attended the human trafficking rally last year, Gabby Humphreys talked about how her trafficker was a Georgia State University professor. It can be anybody. The buyer, the trafficker, the predator. It could literally be anybody. Now, why is it that I am using these three actors and actresses as an example for when it comes down to talking about human trafficking? Because they are actually taking the time out of their schedule to promote this idea. Because this is not an issue, whether it's liberal or Democrat, Republican, conservative, what have you. It is a human rights issue. And they're doing everything in their power and trying to spread as much awareness as possible. But people are still not listening. Why is it people aren't listening? People are still not talking about it enough. This should be like front page news every day of the week, honestly, in my opinion. It doesn't matter whether it's TMZ, Fox News, CNN. It has to be frontline news. We have to hear more about this. Honestly, this is what I truly believe in. I support any actor that's willing to get out there and pound that pavement and talk about issues that need to be discussed. And this is definitely one of them. To Blake Lively and Ashton Kutcher and Dolph Lundgren, thank you so much for actually utilizing your platform to talk about real issues. If anybody tells them to be silenced, they need to be brought out and exposed. Because this is an important topic, a very important issue. It's something that is going to continue until every last trafficker and predator is put behind bars for the rest of their existence. But we can all agree to this one thing. Some of these people have friends in very high places. One of them is in prison right now. Pretty soon she's going to spill the beans on everything that's been going on. And I know I have to use the term accused predator, accused trafficker. Long story short, folks, I support this. I support them using their platform, and you should too. Even if you don't always agree with them, because this is an issue that we all have to stick together and bound together to fight. Go to the websites that they've explained already. I'm going to drop in the links not down below, but I'm going to drop them on my Facebook page, every link for you to go to. Please, go to the websites, do your part, and donate.
Welcome, everyone. You're listening to 365 Broadcasting, where you get the one-stop shop for all things podcasting. Come visit us on Facebook and Twitter at 365 Live. Don't be fooled. The Lamestream media wants to tell you their version of the truth, a version that is far from fact, free of any agenda, and far from the truth. Truth is what we crave. It's what we desire. It's what we need. A truth that only the Big Sarge Show can convey. Tune in every weekday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and watch us on video over at YouTube. The Big Sarge Show. The truth starts here.
What's up, America? This is the Brash American. That's right. the brash American. You know why they call me the brash American? Because I don't hold shit back. I bring you the raw and unfiltered truth. So join me every Monday and Friday on Spreaker, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and get ready to get brash. Ha 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 ha.
Hi, I'm Alex Kirsch, and I'm the host of the Alex Kirsch Project, where I host 2 different shows. Depth of Perspective is the political and social podcast, and N.Y.N.E.R is the all-encompassing entertainment review show. Be sure to check out Depth of Perspective, a rant-based podcast on Spreaker, where I discuss all issues of today and remind you that on Depth of Perspective, the truth has no bias. Be sure to check out my entertainment show, N.Y.N.E.R, on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Spreaker, YouTube, and Facebook. Welcome to the Alex Kirsch Project, the place where content is the key to greatness. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen, and if you haven't done so, please hit like and share. Be sure to comment. Share this podcast out as far as you can, because once again, it's so important that people listen to what I discussed so far, okay? Just to recap for anybody that's missed it, the first half I talked about how there are 3 actors and actresses out there that are fighting against child exploitation and child pornography and human trafficking. And honestly, we need to put them center stage. Because honestly, we need to see more people like them that are out there promoting the right causes. Especially one that is so non-political. It's a human rights issue. The next one I'm going to talk about is I'm going to share 4 different people that have done good things for something that's very near and dear to my heart. Veterans. Actors or celebrities that have done things for the veterans. I keep saying it, and Sarge knows it. We know that the veterans are forgotten far too often. Far too often, veterans seem to be left out in the cold, and for some reason, they just seem to be left out and can't get the care they need. And they don't get the mental health that they need to succeed in order to, once they get done with their service. It's so important that we take the time to understand that there are people out there that are utilizing their platform and utilizing their status. The first one, I'm definitely going to give credit where credit is due, okay? So I'm definitely going to give credit where credit is due for actor James Woods, okay? For people that do not know, okay? Now, James Woods utilized his Twitter account, okay, to help a distressed veteran who was contemplating suicide, okay? Now, for some people, that may not seem like that big of a deal, but I can tell you, it is significant. It is huge. Because far too often, about 20 veterans a day commit suicide. Now, there are those out there that will say that those numbers are skewed, that those numbers are just average. But the thing is, one veteran committing suicide is one too many. However, to the credit of James Woods, he actually took the time to call attention to a veteran who sent a distress tweet. And local authorities were able to locate the man and help him. The man actually then said on Twitter that he is sitting in a parking lot and is going to kill himself. And then James Woods tweeted to his nearly 2 million followers, he's sitting with his dog, a black lab, possibly in a Walmart parking lot. And He says, can you please do a welfare check? He is a Marine vet. I'm going to read to you the tweet of the veteran. I'm on Twitter every day. I retweet all the time, but this is the first tweet I've ever written. I'm a good guy. I'm a veteran. I love America. I'm going to kill myself tonight. I've lost everything. I have nobody. Nobody cares. I'm in a parking lot with my dog. I mean, it's just... And everything I own... Goodbye, he says. It's hard enough because I've had friends that I've served with that committed suicide, and it's a real heartbreaker when you hear about one of your friends commit suicide. I'm just thankful that James Woods took the time out of his day to do what was right. And he didn't do it for clout. He didn't do it because he was paid to. He did it because it's the right damn thing to do. And far too often, we don't give credit where credit is due. And I'm pretty sure he says anybody would have done the same thing, which we know, Sarge and I both know that is not true. Far too often, people will not take time out of their day to make sure that your brother in arms or sister in arms is doing well or not. And I'm really thankful that James Woods took that time. Even if he only did it one time, that's still one life that has been saved right there. And I definitely have to give credit where credit is absolutely due. Honestly, I can't thank James Woods enough for this. I really appreciate everything that he's done for that veteran. And honestly, I wish we had more people that took the time out of their day to do stuff like that. The next celebrity I'm going to talk about is one that I consider pretty much like one of our, I consider this man probably one of our finest patriots. And, people can disagree with him all they want to, but Jon Stewart has been a huge advocate for fighting for the veterans and the 9/11 first responders. He put the entire Senate to shame when they were not in session. Half the time, there weren't even people there, and he shamed them in front of entire audiences. Without him, that 9/11 bill wouldn't have been extended, honestly. I don't care what anybody says. But now he's actually doing more to fight for veterans. Right now, he's trying to do his part to help veterans that are sickened by the burn pits of Iraq. Now, for those that aren't aware, there were burn pits in Iraq, Afghanistan, Sarge can tell you, in Somalia, where, in third world countries, they burn everything. And I mean everything. Everything that you have in a trash can is going to go into the burn pit. Now, there's a lot of chemicals that will actually get inside of your lungs and could cause emphysema and other horrible things that will happen to your body right there. But he's taken the time out of his busy schedule. I mean, I know he doesn't work the Daily Show, but the man is extremely busy. The guy just is working his ass off for other people. And right now, he's doing everything that he can to ensure that the veterans that he works so hard to make sure they're taken care of get the care that they need to be recognized. Because as of right now, there are 6,000 names of veterans who have illnesses that are believed to be related to burn pit exposure. But the thing is, though, Jon Stewart doesn't just focus on this. Jon Stewart, did something for a close friend of mine and Claire's. Actually, it's Claire's, one of her closest friends. One of my friends, retired Major Christina Truesdell, took part in the Warrior Games, and Jon Stewart heard about her story and came over to her house when she was here in Columbus, Georgia, and interviewed her in her house, and basically was there to back her up, and he met up with her again in Colorado Springs, where they competed for the Warrior Games. He's a huge supporter for the military. And for those that don't know, the Warrior Games is for the disabled veterans who feel like they now have a second chance at doing something. They have something to look forward to. Something to strive and look forward to on a day-to-day basis. And honestly, it's just, you can't help but just feel good about a situation like this. Because veterans, when they feel like they're forgotten, they feel like they have nothing else left to live for, the Warrior Games is something that they have to look forward to. And for those that compete, they have the chance to compete in Invictus. Invictus, which was started by Prince Harry. Prince Harry, yes, the royal Prince Harry. I know he's not Prince anymore, but I will always call him Prince Harry because he started Invictus, because he's a veteran too. He started Invictus for everybody across the world. This is essentially the Olympics for veterans. And Claire actually got a chance to go take a trip down to Australia to see her friend Christina compete. This is the kind of stuff that I love seeing more of, and is never, hardly ever talked about on mainstream news. And that's a shame. I think it's terrible they don't talk about this, because honestly, I think this stuff like this needs to get promoted more often. It doesn't matter if it's Jon Stewart, whoever. If you're a part of this organization, like, you should get the front line to something that's good. Because far too often, especially in the year 2020, we're surrounded by negativity and we're just enveloped in all the hatred and divisiveness. But something like this, the Warrior Games and Invictus, even the Olympics, is something that brings us all together. We can put aside our petty differences and compete for something greater. And honestly, I think Invictus is completely underrated and something that needs to get promoted more of. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and type in Invictus, Warrior Games, what have you. Go in there, support them, donate to them, do whatever you have to do. Please, I implore you. The next one is also one that I had the complete honor and privilege of taking part in. Last year here on Fort Benning, Gary Sinise came by with the Lieutenant Dan Band and performed for the troops. Now, granted, a majority of the troops that were there were basic trainees. They were all in uniform, and this was like their one chance to really cut loose right here. And yeah, I was sitting there watching these kids just acting a fool, but these kids deserve to cut loose once in a while. But I got to work backstage security for Gary Sinise's Lieutenant Dan Band. I helped with the setup, and while the concert was going on, I'm just going back and forth. But before the concert, he was there with first responders, firemen, police officers, and they stood together, and I almost got to take the picture of them together, but then somebody moved on. It's like, I'll take the picture, you got stuff to do, which I really didn't at the time. But I talked with the manager and asked him, how often do you guys do this? He's like, we're always on the road. We're always moving. And I was like, does he ever get tired? He's like, he does, but this is something he lives for. Gary Sinise loves doing this. I mean, everybody talks about how good of a man Gary Sinise is. And I can honestly say, yes, he is a good man. I could see it on stage. He didn't look like he was just, going through the motions. He didn't look like he was just taking it one step at a time. He was having the time of his life. And his manager says he is always like that. He's always having a great time. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. If he's got a concert to go do, he'll do 2 concerts a day if he could. I love hearing about people like Gary Sinise that go out there and do stuff. This is a free concert. And he's going out there and just doing what's right by providing entertainment and a service for people that so desperately need it. I said a while back on one of my earlier shows about how music does something to the soul. Music just brings us all together. Music is something that unites us. It makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel sad. It makes you feel angry. I mean, music makes us do things that we just cannot expect. But I'm going to explain to you by the numbers what the Gary Sinise Foundation has done. There have been 64 specially adapted smart homes completed for wounded warriors. 102,400 attendees for our Invincible Spirit Festival since 2012. 299,372 meals served to our nation's defenders across the country. 1,121 veterans and their guardians have participated in our Soaring Valor experiences. Let alone the fact, who can ever forget the fact that he actually spent his own money to help Gold Star children go to Disneyland. These are the workings of a good man. Not just any actor or celebrity, but a good man. And I just can't help but just feel so thankful that I had the opportunity to work backstage security for Gary Sinise. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, which I really wish I could have. But the thing is that he's put forth such a valiant effort to make things a better place, and he's doing it completely free of charge. He is providing a service for people. He's not just an actor. Once again, I consider Gary Sinise a decent, warm-hearted, and good American, and a good patriot, and an all-around good human being. We'll be back shortly after these messages. If you like what you're listening to and are looking to be a subscriber, head on over to www.365livebroadcasting.com for more content. Don't forget to hit like and share and subscribe to all of our shows. The Big Sarge Show with Big Sarge, The Brash America with Gary Glerdon, the Alex Kirsch Project, and Brad Hart with the Hart Truth. This is 365 Broadcasting. The truth starts here. Back to the show. And we're back for the tail end of the show. I had to save the best one for last. Now, you really can't put a number on stuff like this because, once again, this is something that's just very near and dear to my heart right here. The last one I really wanted to save because I really felt like this was something just so necessary that I didn't know anything about until I came upon it on YouTube. And it was a documentary about James Gandolfini. Yes, the James Gandolfini of The Sopranos, who played Tony Soprano. Everybody's so used to seeing James Gandolfini as this big, burly, mean guy on The Sopranos who's always cursing up a storm or, capping guys that are just, going against the grain, that are trying to challenge his authority. But deep down inside, James Gandolfini, God rest his soul, was actually a deep, warm-hearted person. And from what everybody say, that what you would see James Gandolfini on the screen as this brute kind of guy, when you actually met him, he was actually a very tender, warm-hearted human being. Very humble, willing to help anybody at any time. As a matter of fact, he actually took a trip over to Iraq. What was it? He went to Iraq, specifically in Mosul, right? And he went to Mosul, and I actually had a friend of mine who's actually up in Fort Drum right now told me that he actually had the chance to meet James Gandolfini. And the thing was, James Gandolfini didn't just come on the fob. He actually, him and Tony Sirico, who played Paulie Walnuts, actually walked the streets with the soldiers in full battle rattle, meaning you have your helmet, you have your body armor. They actually went out on the streets of Mosul and were hanging out on, I think it was like a dinar exchange or something like that, like some sort of, I can't remember what it was, or a police station, right? And they actually were sitting there talking with these soldiers, and then next thing they heard mortar fire, and he says the soldiers just stopped and just got focused on their job. And Tony Sirico just said, these guys are the real tough guys. These kids have experienced this before. Well, James Gandolfini was dedicated to flying over and seeing service members, and he cared very, very deeply about them. He cared deeply about the Wounded Warrior Project. He cared very, very deeply about taking care of the veterans. But the one thing he noticed was, in 2007, he actually realized there wasn't enough talk about what happened after war, especially for those that were wounded. So he created a documentary called Alive Day Memories, Home from Iraq. Now, he focused specifically on Iraq, just because there were so many people that still weren't, they were talking about the war, but they weren't talking about the soldiers that were wounded. And it's a very touching documentary. If you have a chance, watch it, okay? Because it's so raw. And James Gandolfini didn't hardly do any of the talking. When you watch the documentary itself, all the attention is on the wounded veterans. You barely ever see him. Like, you'll see him every now and then, but he's more about talking and getting their side of the story and learning more about them. Well, James Gandolfini actually took the time to actually listen to their stories, and he talked to 10 different veterans, and they got to share their stories. They shared about what injuries they have and what life has been like ever since they've got injured. There was one veteran that really stuck with me, and her name is Dawn Halfacker. When she was in Iraq in 2004, if I'm not mistaken, an RPG had knocked her arm completely off at the shoulder. And she talked about how life was, how difficult it was for her to, cope with the fact that she was missing an entire arm. But she wasn't just talking about the fact that she no longer had the arm, but she was talking about the fact that she was worried about whether she was ever going to be a mother, if she was ever going to get married, whether a man would actually want to get married to her, whether she was ever going to be able to pick up her kids. And I just want everybody to know, I found out that she's happily married and has 2 kids. But the thing is you watch this part of the interview and you just see the emotion on her face about how she was so worried about what people would think about her, because nobody would ever actually know that she served in the military unless somebody asked her specifically. And you just see her transition into just somebody that's just like, has like 1,000-yard stare. And James Gandolfini was asking her, is like, what were you just thinking about just now? And she was just very, very honest with him. And each and every one of them talked about how he didn't seem to be condescending. He did all the listening and very little talking right there. He talked to a veteran about how he felt like he's a freak because his body's been was mangled by a VBID, which is a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, and talked about how he had night terrors and how he just struggled day in and day out. And he said that, next thing I know, he's James Gandolfini. He's like crying right in front of me. He's like, is this like an act? Is he just making this up? And he come to find out that it was actually genuine emotion. And he said afterwards that, afterwards, James Gandolfini gave him a hug after the interview and asked him, is there anything I could do? He was like, well, could you talk to my fiance real quick? And the first thing he says as soon as James Gandolfini introduced himself was, he talked to the fiance and told her, be patient with him. Now, for those that don't know how significant that is to a veteran, it's so hard for people to understand what veterans have experienced in their day-to-day life while downrange in service to their country. Horrible things happen. It's war. It's a terrible thing that happens, and very, very rarely do people understand the depth of how traumatic it can be, honestly. Sarge knows. Lots of people who've served know. But the thing is, though, is that people don't understand. Even your own family members will not understand how difficult it is to share your story, because some people just will not understand. And for some people, it's like, well, why can't you tell me? I want to tell everybody right now, when it comes down to asking a veteran what it was like over there, if they don't tell you right away, you have to be patient as to why. Don't try to prod them on it. Give them time. Give them a chance to understand that not everything is about you or why they don't want to talk to you. It's just difficult for some people. It's harder than others to really express themselves and express why they feel the way they do. Especially for people that suffer from night terrors. People that are missing limbs, that can't walk or they can't function. They feel like they can't function. It's hard for them. I don't know what that's like. I've got all my limbs and I'm counting all my blessings. But some people are not as lucky. Yes, I have some scars, some mental scarring from my experiences. But this is why I want to go into social work. I want to do my part to help others. Help people that need the help. And in a way, I'll feel like I'm doing myself a service right here. But I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about, once again, how James Gandolfini truly believed in doing his part in helping those that need the help. When you see a veteran, especially like a big burly one, you might think that this guy is made of steel. Nothing can break him down. You'd be mistaken, though. Anybody can suffer from post-traumatic stress. Doesn't matter who it is. And it's not something to be mocked. It's not something to be made fun of. It's not something that you can just pass off and say, just pull yourself together. It's something that has to be taken seriously. And fortunately, now services are getting better. But it's not enough. There are still soldiers, veterans, what have you, whatever branch of service you served in, that are taking their own lives because they can't get the help that they so desperately need. I really, really wish that I could say into further detail as to why it's so important for you to watch this, but it really kind of opens your eyes to what happens afterwards. And it's just so emotional to watch at times. You can't help but just feel overcome with emotion. I know plenty of fellow brothers and sisters that came back, and part of the war there's parts of them where they left themselves back in their deployed country. That war didn't necessarily leave them. And they need that help. They need that treatment. And I feel like Alive Day Memories Home from Iraq is one of those documentaries that people need to watch to understand the true cost. Even though there are many people that are saying, well, I'm lucky to be alive, you have no idea what you're telling this person because you're not completely whole. Even though James Gandolfini never served a day in the military. He understood that not everybody's okay. And he gave these people, these veterans, these toughened veterans, toughened by conditions that most people never understand, a chance to be vulnerable. And I really, really hope that they are continuing to be well, that they're continuing to sort of live each day. And they're also eternally thankful for James Gandolfini for what he did for them. He brought to light so many issues that people still need to be talking about to this day. I can honestly say thank you, James Gandolfini, for your contributions. You know, you're definitely missed. He is definitely missed. I mean, I love watching Sopranos episodes, and it's just so funny to think how a tough guy like Tony Soprano and the man, James Gandolfini, is truly just a generous, warm, kind-hearted person. And, you know, we could definitely use more people like James Gandolfini. So, but anyway, folks, you have to ask yourself when it comes down to it, should celebrities have a platform to express these issues? I say they should, even if we disagree with them. Even if it's an issue we don't think that they have any part in saying. Sometimes you have to look into context as to what they're talking about and why they're talking about it. And you're free to disagree with them if you want to. But there are some actors out there that don't get enough attention for talking about issues like human trafficking, like child sex exploitation, like helping those with mental health issues, like those that are helping veterans. Those are the issues we need to still be discussing. But for some reason, it's just not controversial enough. When will it be controversial enough for us to bring this to the limelight more? I really, really hope that more people are taking notice of this. Please, I implore you, go to those websites. Go to the websites. Donate to them. Learn about them. Tell your friends. The next time you have a conversation over a cup of coffee, talk about this issue. It might make you uncomfortable, but I tell you what, it's a hell of a lot more uncomfortable for the victims right now. And I'm not trying to guilt anybody. I'm just saying this is a situation and something that needs to be discussed on a day-to-day basis almost. Because until every child and every victim of sex exploitation and human trafficking is safe, we have to make people uncomfortable and talk about it. And I thank every celebrity that's taken the time to utilize their platform and ensure that people listen. And even if people don't listen, I'm just going to tell them, don't give up. Fight the good fight. Make sure that you are imploring and getting people aware, because I'm going to. And I expect everybody in the audience to do their part and sharing this out and ensuring that people understand that there are some good celebrities out there. That there are some good people that just happen to make millions of dollars, but they're doing their platform the right way, in my honest opinion. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to tune in tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where Big Sarge, myself, Gary Glaridan, and Brad Hart, and a couple other surprise guests are going to be coming in as a part of the panel tonight. We'll have a variety of issues for the Big Sarge Show Power Panel. Thank you so much, everybody, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their weekend.